If you're a mom, you're a superhero. That's right. Own it. We possess a unique superpower of intuition, a sixth sense for what our kids are up to, how they feel, what they want, and when they want it. Yep, it's amazing. I call this mom sense. Oftentimes, we are Googling for answers, joining Facebook groups, or relegating to taking unsolicited advice from our friends when all we have to do is listen to that voice inside us. No, not the one that's telling you you're fat. The other voice, the one that seems to know everything when it comes to your kids and leaves you feeling confident, empowered, purposeful, and all things #mom goals. Hi, I'm Kanika Chadda Gupta, and I'm a mother of twin toddlers and a baby, double the fun plus one. And I can honestly say that now that I'm a mom, I feel like my life is just getting started. On my podcast, I interview industry experts and real-life mamas on their mom sense experiences, tackling topics like how to teach kids to meditate, what it takes to have the marriage you've always dreamed of, and how to master your car makeup routine. Grab your latte, that's probably ice cold by now, and take a listen to That's Total Mom Sense. So if you're a mom of toddlers, you've probably had to deal with the dreaded tantrum. They happen all the time at home and in public. And when we have an audience, like when you're at the grocery store or at the mall, it's the most embarrassing thing ever. They don't call it terrible twos for nothing. Today, we're going to learn how to deal with tantrums and really get to the root of the issue. My guest today is Brooke Campbell. She's a licensed creative arts therapist and board certified trainer of drama therapy with 15 years of experience and holds a master's degree from New York University. She's the founder of Creative Connections, LLC, an arts-based community organization providing drama therapy to clients, universities, hospitals, schools, nonprofits, addiction centers, and domestic violence organizations. Brooke is an alumni and teaching fellow at the University of Pennsylvania with the School of Social Policy and Practice and guest lectures at NYU and the School of Visual Arts. In 2018, she received the Women's Excellence Award in Children's Advocacy and has been voted by parents as a favorite kids doc in the category of psychotherapy from 2013 to 2018. I think this is a topic that's really, really relevant to first-time moms, and you're going to help us solve this catastrophic problem that we face when we have toddlers. So firstly, please tell us, what is drama therapy?
Thank you. Yes. So drama therapy began in the 1970s, and the definition, which is cited from the North American Drama Therapy Association website, it states that drama therapy is an active and an experiential approach to facilitating change in our lives. So what we use as drama therapists is through the use of storytelling and projected play, really intentional and purposeful improvisation, and the use of performance. We invite people to rehearse desired behaviors and really practice being in relationship with others, with groups, with their families, and to expand and find flexibility between their life roles and perform the change they really want to be and see in their world.
So how does it really relate to psychotherapy?
So it's similar in the use of, we as drama therapists are trained as psychotherapists. So we do take group therapy and individual counseling and psychotherapy, and our work is rooted in psychology. We can use the talk therapy, but when there are moments where talk is not enough, and especially with children, or if we're going through a transition or a hard time in our life, no matter what the age, the use of embodiment and play really gets to the root of some of those challenges and issues, and it gets to the surface very quickly and helps people really find another way. They are able to problem solve, gain insight, and really move forward in their world in a more effective, faster way. Yeah.
So why is it that toddlers throw tantrums and act out? Is it just to get our attention, or are they like stressed out or frustrated? Why do they act out?
Sure. No, that's a great question. And as a mom, I have 3 small children myself, ages almost 8 and 5.5 and 2, almost 3 years old. And that toddler age is really challenging. And I love how you do cite that the twos and tantrums, oh my. And it's a challenging time because this is the age of them really developing. And so developing cognitively, being able to sort of find their words. And so with that, it gets frustrating because even as adults, sometimes it's hard for us to really say how we're feeling, what we're needing in the moment. And so for children at that age, it is both that their tantrums are both. It could be to get our attention right away, but also there could be an issue. They could be stressed out about something. And so when they're in that moment, they're really overactivated in that lower region of their brain. So I love to use and cite the book by, his name is medical doctor Daniel Siegel. And in his book, it's called The Whole Brain Child. He really talks about this. So I reference this book a lot. There's a lot of great strategies, but he talks about how in the lower part of our brain, or that lower staircase of our brains, it's really responsible for that those primitive feelings like the anger and rage and fear. And so children tend to live in that place. They get really activated very quickly. And so it's our job to help our children. This is what I do with my own children, but also in the work that I do in working with children in drama therapy, is to really help them shift from their lower part of their brain to their middle prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for thinking and planning and imagining. So there's ways we're going to talk about later to be able to help them really shift into that other part of their brain. But usually it's because children are very trapped and in that lower region of their brain. So what fires up is sort of this rage and primitive feelings. And so it's our job, obviously, to sort of hold space for them and help them transition and shift to that more prefrontal cortex part of their brain, where they can really think about what's wrong and what do I need. It might take time, but that's our job, is to hopefully help them guide them so they can be able to problem solve, and again, to sort of access that other part of their brain, which I've seen children, even of all ages, not just in the twos, they really struggle with that self-regulation and being able to make those shifts. But in my work, using drama therapy, it's really effective, and I've been able to use it in my practice too, and I've seen it work. Yeah.
Wow. And so because they can't really tap into that prefrontal cortex, is that why they cry, yell, kick, scream? Is that what they do as a result, kind of?
I see that. Yes, I do attribute to that. I mean, yes, it's obviously, especially with that younger age, the 2 to 3, the toddler age, it is obviously because it could be similar to the baby and the infant of like, I'm tired or I'm hungry and those kinds of things. But especially with the toddlers, they are learning language. And so it's like they do have some of those words to be able to say what they're needing, but they're not quite there yet. They're not able to fully access and say maybe exactly the words and exactly what they're looking for. So I think it's frustration a lot of times. That's what I've noticed with a lot of toddlers, that it's just, it almost is very difficult for them to express the full intention, the why behind what they're needing and wanting in that moment. So it's almost just they're filled up like that volcano. They want us so badly to understand them. And so, I mean, similar with adults, when we feel triggered, when we're angry and we're driving and we're in a traffic jam and we need to get somewhere, and what comes out is like, but inside it's something else, I just really wanted to get there on time, or I really wanted time for this or that. We get easily frustrated. And I think for toddlers, it's very much that way because they're still developing, obviously cognitively, they're still developing, their brains are still, forming and gaining so many new skills, and they're learning so much. So they're activated in that way. But then they're easily, obviously frustrated because, again, they're struggling with the learning. And yes, they do get very much activated and locked in that downstairs brain. So that's our job. We don't want them to cycle through the downstairs brain where they're trapped in that feeling of fear and frustration and rage. That's where we can come in and kind of help them break up that cycle so they can know, okay, we can validate and say, I can see you're mad, I can see you're really scared or afraid, what can we do? And so maybe just sometimes validating it and helping them shift, it helps them pull to that other part of the brain. Can we do this or that? Maybe we could go outside. Do you want this or that? Giving them the options. I know that's what Dr. Dan Siegel talks about, like giving little options and ways where we can pull them out in that moment, grab their attention and help them make a choice. I think really, again, just sort of helps them shift, and they can be able to find the language and find another way.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess let me give you a scenario. If, a mom is in a grocery store and her, 2-year-old is throwing a tantrum. Can you give some tips on what she can do at that moment?
So, I mean, and I've been there myself too, as a parent, and I've seen it obviously in my office many times with children. So, I mean, it definitely depends on what level of like the tantrum that they're in. But if they're in that stage where we can kind of catch it really before it sort of gets to that total meltdown place, we're starting to notice that they're getting frustrated or fussy. A lot of times what I do is, I stop and I really want to help them sort of freeze in that moment. So I might, and I learned this when I interned with, his name's Dr. Lee Chasen. He works at a place called Kid Esteem. I interned with him many years ago, but he talked about superpower ways to get our mad out and sour power ways to get our mad out. And superpower ways is just naming it. I'm so mad. So we can model that for our children. Like, you're just so mad right now, or you're so tired, or you're frustrated. You want to go home. You don't want to be here. You can kind of validate with how they're feeling, how you think that they're feeling. And then to shift it, like Dan Siegel talks about in The Whole Brain Child, we can help them shift to really go towards their prefrontal cortex, which is really having them connect with something in front of them. Like, it's very rooted almost in like mindfulness and sort of meditation and really being in the moment. So we want them to use their senses. We want them to stop. Okay, so after we validate how they're feeling, I see that you're like, mad. Oh, I'm so mad. Oh, you feel so frustrated. And then maybe you grab a cereal box. What color is this? What character is on this box? You love Minions. You love. My kids are so excited about the Toy Story movie coming out. So it's like, oh, look, what's that character's name? Or what color is that? Or kind of getting them. And I know it sounds like it's just sort of a distraction. And it's not exactly because we validated their feeling first. If we didn't validate the feeling first, then maybe it would be considered a distraction. But it's really about pulling them into the moment so that they're not in that loop of rage or frustration. It's like we can pull them in that moment, and then we can problem solve with them once they sort of settle down a little bit. Hey, do you want this? Do you want that? Maybe kind of giving them some options. You can sort of talk with them and be able to get through the moment. And it's definitely worked with the kids I see in my practice, but also with my own children. There's a moment where it just shifts it, breaks it up, where we can laugh and be able to sort of connect and then just kind of work through it and get through the next moment. So, I mean, and it is about negotiation. So it might mean that, okay, so they're a little happier. And so then maybe we have to like quickly get the stuff we need, check out and get out of there. It might not be that we can be there another hour if they're sort of tired or whatever it is, but it'll help, I think, in that moment, for them to be able to ease in their full level of frustration or whatever they're experiencing.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And it's so funny. I didn't realize that I was employing a tactic like that because I do that with my twin 2-year-olds now. There's times where at mealtime, they, throw food on the floor and, if it's something that they don't want to eat and it's exhausting and it's, it just like no fun for anyone. But I've noticed that if I give them some Tegu blocks or a puzzle or start asking them, what color is this? What shape is this? All of a sudden they're like so zoned into answering the question. And then it's like, here I am spoon feeding them and they don't even realize because they're answering my questions.
That's right. So, that's exactly. It transitions that moment. Absolutely. That's perfect.
Yeah.
You're already doing it. You're absolutely already doing it. And I think it helps for me anyway, just to know there's a little bit of theory behind it. Like, wow. And as moms, I know sometimes at times we question ourselves and doubt ourselves. So to know like, wow, I really am using this strategy that is effective and I am trusting my gut and it is working. And so, and it's now that you're hearing that there's a reason behind it, it's really helping them shape their brain and being able to, problem solve and be able to self-regulate and all of that. I think it's really, really helpful. And in terms of drama therapy, we use a lot of like role play as drama therapists, but also I've pulled drama therapy techniques into my parenting practice. So I do tend to use a lot of like role play and embodiment, using my actual body to mirror maybe if my child is feeling mad. Oh, is your mad kind of like this dragon that's breathing fire? We can sort of mirror that for them, their inner feelings. We can project it out through the use of play and embodiment. I use a lot of mirroring. So if my son is maybe grumpy, maybe I do a grumpy face and maybe start that place like, I just don't want to be here. Or, I'm tired. I want to go home, or I want this, or I want that. We can sort of mirror them. I use a lot of storytelling with the kids, either making up the story with them, using fairy tales, and just really being able to connect with our children. That really very much helps.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's a really good one that you said, role play. It's almost tapping into, their sense of imagination and wonder.
Yeah.
It's like if you're mad or scared or sad, or sleepy, just kind of like pretend you're this animal and act it out, and then it becomes a type of play and, in a game and something that you can quickly get over. And I think this is much better.
Yeah.
This is much better than, I'm sure parents do it. We do it all the time. If you stop crying, I'm going to give you some fruit snacks or some M&Ms. You don't have to use that route. And I feel like I personally don't like to reward with food. But yeah, kind of that bribery like tends to backfire, right?
Mm-hmm. No, that's a great point. Yeah. And I mean, I've definitely been there in situations myself as well, when we're feeling sort of at our wit's end. I've also seen that when I do have that insight and I am able to sort of pull from some of those examples I mentioned, it seemed like it sort of transitions things with more ease. Like, for example, like if we're downstairs, I need to put the kids to bed, I'll be like, okay, we're birds or we're superheroes and we're flying upstairs, like something where like you can use the role play to actually assist with these transitional moments. And it really, I feel like what happens is children tend to comply more easily through the use of role. Like it's a win-win. So it's like what we as parents, as mothers, we're getting sort of what we're desiring, the achieved sort of behavior or goal. Like we're getting that outcome. Like, okay, great, they're going upstairs, they're brushing their teeth, but we're also tapping into their creativity and their play and their attention. So we can grab their attention and they're able to do what they need to do. Oh my goodness, let's brush our teeth and oh my goodness, let's pretend that we're, we're at the dentist and let's show the dentist how we brush our teeth. There's different ways that we can kind of imagine and still get what they need to do done. And so we can do it by using play and the use of spontaneity. So that's definitely been effective. And I've worked on that even with like teachers and school administrators, just to be able for them to use creativity in the classroom. And it is definitely effective. Yeah, definitely. And the other thing I teach, I think I talked about a little bit earlier, was to help children, like when they're in that moment, to actually, I say like, stop, like freeze. And then they actually are able to name the feeling. So like, I'll teach them like superpower versus sour power ways to get our mad out. So superpower is like, I'm just so mad, like just naming it. Like even Dr. Dan Siegel talks about naming it to taming it. And it's better when it's stated out loud and received, someone can hear it, than if we're just sort of internally feeling that way. We could feel helpless. So really, I teach my kids, and even like my 2-year-old will say like, I'm mad, I'm just so mad, or I'm sad, or he can be able to actually verbalize it. And so that's a great way where we can help them shift the moment. Well, you're mad. What can we do if you're mad? Do we stomp it out? Are we lions? Can we roar loudly? Once we get them to sort of name that feeling and express it, then we can do something with it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I wanted to ask you, is there an age where kids kind of really understand the difference between right and wrong? And when is that? When they kind of establish a sense of empathy when they've done something wrong?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I tend to see it as young. I mean, in my practice, I've worked with children as young as 3, and I've seen them be able to have that understanding. And especially with drama therapy, we use a lot of like role reversal. So I've seen 3-year-olds be able to have that sense of understanding, that sense of morality. And even in my own youngest, who's almost 3, in between 2 and 3, I can see that he'll stop and sort of look when my other children maybe are crying or upset by something maybe he did or said. And so I think I see at that age, they're able to know their world. Yes, I mean, they're thinking from an ego place, like, oh, everything is sort of what I want. But then in those moments, I think they are able to see. It's important for us to sort of capture it, to pause it, not to let the moment go. I mean, I try to pause my youngest, my 2-year-old, almost 3-year-old, in that moment. Stop, look at Look at your sister. What is she doing? Oh, she's crying. Why is she crying? She's sad. Why is she sad? Really, it's important, I think, to almost play out that moment of that consequence and be able to strengthen their sense of morality. But I see that they are able to have it as young as, in the toddler age.
Yeah, no, I agree. They might not be able to articulate and verbalize what they're feeling. But yeah, I tend to do the same thing with my kids where, if they're snatching toys from each other or, like relegate to hitting, biting, it's like I just stop and then kind of have the person who wronged the other see that this, he's crying or she's crying because you hit him, and so, yeah, I think kind of like stopping that moment in time so that they get to process what they've done is pretty powerful. What is your take on timeout?
Sometimes it's helpful too with toddlers to actually use what's in drama therapy we call a projective technique. So in addition to maybe connecting with, look how your sister's feeling. She's crying because you hit her, you stole her toy, you ruined her creation. So I do that. But also if you use like an object, a stuffed animal or something like that, and also talk about the sour power way that they let their mad out. You use the sour power way to get your mad out. You were hitting. And so bear now feels sad. Maybe you use the bear to also relate to this sibling who is actually, hurt. It's also bear. Maybe bear is upset. Maybe if the child like throws something, sometimes they throw something on the floor or a toy on the floor. I'll say like, now the toy feels sad. You threw me on the floor. Why did you throw me on the floor? Really, that's called personification in drama therapy. You bring things to life that obviously aren't living, but that's also where there's empathy. Oh my goodness, my favorite bear is sad because I threw it on the floor. There's other tactics and ways through play to also get them to feel the weight of sort of their consequences and gain empathy and perspective taking. But for timeouts, I have used them in my own parenting, and I tend to use it more of like a time in, a way that they can sort of reflect. And so I don't use it often, although I feel like in some moments it's important for them to just sort of, and it is a place where I can see them, I'm close to them. It's not an area where they are like, oh, you have to go upstairs. Like I want children to feel, and I think this is important too, that, and I think for adults, we feel this, that we know innately when we did something that wasn't the best choice. We could feel internally, we could feel guilt, we could feel bad. We also could feel shame. And this is where I see children, not only my own, but also those that I work with. This is where it could turn into a bit of a problem when children start to internalize feelings of shame, because guilt means, oh, I made a not a great choice, and I maybe did something that wasn't great. But shame is I am bad. I am the bad choice. I am bad. And kids struggle with this, even when I see them in my practice. A lot of times I just don't want to get into trouble. I want to do the right thing because I don't want to get into trouble. And so that I feel like I would rather, children to feel the internal consequence and to know that next time they can make a better choice. And so that reflecting time for me, I mean, even in my own practice with children, is pausing in that moment and having them, I use like the traffic light where it's the yellow, like that's just pause on yellow, just like when we're driving, we have to start to slow down. We have to slow down our bodies. About self-regulation. This is about pausing and starting to really use that prefrontal cortex. I'm going to pause on yellow. I'm going to then stop. I'm going to stop my body. And as I'm stopping, I'm going to be thinking, what are the 3 best choices I can make? So, hey, I didn't make that great choice last time, but I'm going to stop in this moment and I'm going to go on green when I make the best choice. So I do that too with my children and even the kids that I work with, like stopping and when they're taking that time in to reflect, what can we do next time? What can we do? What are 3 options? So instead, it's about problem solving. For me in my own parenting practice, but with the children I work with. So you felt frustrated, so you did this. But maybe what we can do is I didn't know where you were coming from if I'm talking to my daughter. So, oh, you really needed time alone. So just talk to mommy and you can go upstairs and listen to music for 5 minutes. If you're feeling frustrated by being with your 2 brothers, next time maybe you can talk to me. Like if she was struggling with something and she needed to reflect. There's usually the children are reacting a certain way they're feeling frustrated. It's hard for them to sort of problem solve. But if they can stop and kind of think about different options and let us into their world a little bit, we can have more understanding. We can help them problem solve. It's like we're negotiating and navigating that this challenge together. It's not just on them. We want to be able to provide those helpful options going forward. And even children as young, as 2 to 3, my little one understands, oh, we're going here. Why are you frustrated? Oh, I want to play. Like, so do you want to bring that with you on our way? Do you want to bring one toy? We can start to help them problem solve.
I love the idea of a time in. I think that, being able to show them how to be mindful and, reflect and understand what self-introspection is at a young age will really set them up for success in the long run, and being really attuned to who they are. So I really love that philosophy. And, the difference between shaming and guilting is one that we often overlook. And I think that maybe what was tried and tested in the past just doesn't really work now. We're way more aware as parents. We have a lot more literature and, avenues and information out there to know that there's other tactics that can actually incite them to change without having them feel bad about themselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that using that time in and having them reflect develops more of their sense of resiliency. So like, hey, that's okay. We can bounce back. So now's a new moment, and we'll make a different choice and let's move forward with it. So we want them to build the resiliency, the problem solving ability. But yeah, we also want to maintain their sense of self, right? Their sense of confidence and mastery in the world. We want them to know that they're competent and they can make positive choices. And when there's a lot of sort of that punishment or children sort of being yelled at or these other things that, children do tend to, I do see that with kids that I work with, they struggle with that internalized shame. And sometimes they've experienced it at school from teachers or from other kids, and at times from their own parents. So, and I know that as moms or parents, like, we're not perfect. So we are on that journey of learning. Although, yes, many times children might not say that they're feeling that. So it comes out in behavior. It comes out in them being mad or frustrated or rebellious or, no, I don't want to do that. And so, but they're internally feeling a certain way, bad about themselves or shameful. So, yeah, I think that's important. Yeah, absolutely. For them to know that they're loved and we love them unconditionally. And we're just helping them sort of problem solve.
So what are some of your top tips for first-time moms? A lot of the listeners are, learning as we go, and we'd love to hear from someone who's not only a mom herself, but an expert as far as drama therapy and dealing with kids entails. So tell us what your tips are.
So, I mean, the first thing I think of is when I had my first, who's now she's turning 8 soon. And my mom came to visit, and she was the mom. My mom has 5 children. I'm the youngest of 5. And my dad was in the military, so he'd be gone for months at a time. And so she's a retired teacher, but there were long periods of time where she would stay home, and she did feel isolated, and she did need specific literal help at many times that she let me know of. So her suggestion when she stayed with me to help was, please join a mother's group. Please find mothers that you can connect with and have that sense of community, and how important that is, because I know that, unfortunately she wasn't able to have that back then. And so I took that to heart. I was able to research and find like a local mothers group in my area. There's about over 100 moms that are part of it, and we do various activities. I'm still a member myself. And I've done activities with my own children there. They host different holiday parties. We meet at, in the fall, like on a farm, and we do different things. And so, but over the years, it's been really crucial to have other mom friends that I can call or I can reach out to. They all delivered dinner when my children were first born. And if I'm going through a lot, my husband might be traveling, they'd say, oh, I can come over. Can I help watch them? I mean, I think it's just really helpful to have a support, even if it's one mom or just a call. I feel like it's really important.
Yeah. What was the name of your mom's group? I know we're both in Jersey. Can you tell us?
Yes, this is called the Mothers Center of Central New Jersey.
Okay.
And moms from all over have driven, even if it's like 30 minutes or so, but they've driven because there's just so many different events that they host. So it's called, yes, the Mothers Center of Central New Jersey. There's a website, and we come up with different, like each season, there's like a new kind of like newsletter and different activities and resources and groups and events, and they do fun little parties. And again, I've been a member since my child was 8 months old, and now she's turning 8. And it's been it's been very vital, absolutely, just to be able to connect. And some people, they kind of lose touch, but then maybe they go back just for a party, or so it's nice just to even be able to kind of come in and out and just to hold on to those friendships with the moms was really great.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think, as soon as I had my twins, my OBGYN gave me a list of mom groups, ones that were twin mom groups. And then there was like breastfeeding groups. Of course, if you want to go virtual, there's ones on Facebook. So if you need a nanny, like you can find one, because you have this army of other mothers who are there to support you. So I find that to be very, very helpful. I'm part of a group called Hey Mama, and it's really a league of incredible professional women. Reagan Moya Jones, who I interview on the podcast, the co-founder and CEO of Aiden and Anae, is a member. Melissa Benishay of Baked by Melissa, Rebecca Minkoff. I mean, some really heavy hitters who happen to be moms. And I feel like having any community to kind of be in your corner in that way is so, so important, especially when motherhood can feel incredibly isolating. Tell me about a mom sense moment that you've had.
One that comes to mind is when my middle child, he was born right before like the holiday time, so in December. And so he was probably like maybe, I want to say around 6 weeks old or so. And he was having some symptoms. I knew, at that point, he was my second child, but I knew that he was sort of spitting up and he was having some symptoms that I knew were off. So I just incessantly contacted our pediatrician. And at first she was sort of like, no, it's no big deal. It's maybe just this or that. It's not a big deal. But I knew that as time was sort of going by that it was something more concerning. So I just didn't let up and called again, even if it was whatever, 1 or whatever in the morning, of just calling in saying like, no, this is bad. This is what I'm seeing. And so finally she said, yeah, that sounds like RSV. That sounds like it's more serious. And so you do have to go to the ER. And I did. And it was, and he was, hooked up to tubes, and thank goodness he was okay. But we were there for probably about 5-6 days. I slept there with him, and he was fine. He was great. And so it was a lot of advocating, like, yes, I can nurse him here. And at first, even with the hospital, they didn't so much want me to do that because it's breathing and whatnot. But the pediatrician advocated and said, no, she can. And so it was just a lot of advocating, but trusting, going back on that mom sense kind of gut instinct of, hey, this doesn't feel right, and I'm going to advocate for my child. And so I'm glad that I did, and he's fine.
It's now time for Mom Haul, when we share products we love.
What is a product that you are loving right now that you want to share with us?
My middle child and my youngest, so 5.5 and 2, almost 3, we were noticing like at dinner time or just any meals that before we weren't really using like booster seats. And so I just noticed that mealtime was sort of hard for them to kind of stay put. But I found this wonderful product that's worked wonders. It's called Kaboost. It's a portable chair booster. It's spelled Kaboost. I found it just like on a whim. I found it on Amazon, but basically it connects to like the bottom of chairs. So it's not actually like a seat that they sit on, because before we had those, but they would sort of slide off or become dirty or just kind of cumbersome. But they've worked brilliantly. They can kind of come off, but they're safe. And and I found one in sort of a neutral color, so it's not even really like noticeable or anything. And I've had people over, like we had a contractor come in to do some painting, and he was like, "Oh, those are cool." He used to be our neighbor, and so he knows our kids very well. And so he's like, "Whoa, those are neat. What are they?" So he was interested. He has a lot of grandkids himself. And then even my mom came to visit, and she noticed them, and she said, "Oh, that's so wonderful, and how innovative." And so I would definitely recommend that.
So my Mom Haul product is Davines All-in-One Milk. It's a hair type of spray serum, if you will. And it is like a game changer. My hair, was really thick and luscious when I was pregnant, and I was pregnant like basically 2 years back to back. And then all of a sudden the hair fall kicks in, and you're left with these locks that are like lifeless and stringy and just no fun at all. So I use this is something that my hairstylist recommended, and it's great. It just makes you want to run your fingers through your hair all day long. It's almost like a detangler and a lotion. And then I also use it before I blow dry my hair. So it's called the Davines All-in-One Milk, and a little less than 2 ounces is $17. And if you want the 5-ounce bottle, it's double that at $34. So it costs a pretty penny, but it is worth it.
Let's not forget our quote of the day.
Tell us a quote that you live by.
Great. And I love this part too that you include in your podcast. I like to think of a quote from the poet E.E. Cummings. And the quote he shares is, "It takes courage to grow up and become who you really are." And just, I know it's so simple about like being brave and being courageous, but I feel like I don't know, it's that quote somehow really resonates with me, along with how I live my life personally, but also as a mom, how I try to parent, but in how I work as well, just trying to really be brave and be as authentic as I can and bring that sense of like authenticity and courage and bravery to my kids, to my own life, and to the work that I do, being of service to my community and those that I work with in my practice. So yeah, I would say that quote really inspires me.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for being on the show and enlightening us with your philosophies and tips. And we can all take a cue from you and better relate to our children. So thank you so much for taking the time out today.
I really appreciate you having me, Kanika. And again, thank you for hosting this podcast. I think it's just a wonderful resource for moms, and just for them to take that time out and really actually make it a time in, really, to really be able to talk about those moments where they can recharge and listen and regroup and gain insight. And I think it's just really genius. So I'm thankful for you for offering that. And again, just for having me.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. I hope you got some great takeaways from our expert drama therapist, Brooke Campbell. I think she had some really interesting points on what's going through your kid's head when they're throwing a tantrum, and how to understand it and how to help them overcome it. And I think if we put these practices in place, hopefully the tantrums are few and far between. That is the goal. So tune into other episodes of That's Total Mom Sense on my website, aptly, that'stotalmomsense.com. And if you have any suggestions for show topics or guests, or just want to say hi, I'd love to hear from you. Write to me at that'stotalmomsense@gmail.com. Stay strong, super mamas. See you next time.
That's Total Mom Sense.